First, we're gonna be working with our motherboard and our CPU. We chose a board by MSI. This is the B450 Tomahawk Max, and the 3600 right now is going for 173. It has 12 threads and its max boost is 4.2 gigahertz. On the bottom left-hand side of our CPU, we're gonna find a tiny little golden arrow. We're gonna be lining that up with the arrow on the motherboard, which is located on the top left. So we're gonna wanna lift the lever to the side and then all the way up. We're not gonna push down on the CPU. We're just gonna let it drop into place like that so we won't bend our pins. Then we could put our lever back down. So to attach our heatsink, we gotta unscrew these things first. All right, so I like to line it up with the AMD text on the left. And now we secure all 4 points. To power our fan, we're gonna hook it up to the CPU fan header. It's located right here. So for our RAM, we're going with a 16 gigabyte kit rated at 3200 megahertz. This is by Corsair. We gotta make sure that we put our 2 sticks into the second RAM slot and then the 4th slot. So once I have it lined up, just push down on opposite sides and the next one. So moving on to our storage, we went with a 500 gigabyte M.2 form factor SSD. It's gonna go into our M.2 slot on our board and then we just secure it with 1 screw. This is where our I/O shield comes into play. So we're just gonna be clipping this guy back here. When inserting our board into our case, we want to first make sure that all the points of our motherboard line up with the standoffs inside the case. So our board has 9 points, and this case already has all 9 standoffs in the appropriate position, so we don't have to move them around or anything. First, I line up the ports of our board with the I/O shield, and then I lay it down and line it up with the standoffs. So we're just gonna do 8 of the points. This one, no need. This is where the board's actually gonna rest. Now we're gonna get our juice in there. For that, we're gonna be using a 600 watt bronze rated power supply by EVGA. So the 2 cables that are already hooked up to it is our 24 pin power cable, which powers the motherboard, and then this one powers our CPU. So when we put in our power supply, make sure that the fan is facing the bottom of the case. So the power supply draws in cool air from the bottom, and then this is where it blows it out. We can find a dust filter that you may want to clean every once in a while. So we're gonna break them down into 3 groups. The first group is all the case cables. These connect the ports and our power button to the motherboard. Our second group of cables is the 4 fans in our build, and then the last group is the 3 power cables. We're gonna be plugging in our case cables first. This one's labeled HD audio. It's gonna hook up at the bottom left side of our board. So that's good to go. That cable hooks up the headphone/mic input of the case to the board. It is only 1 input, but inside our accessories box, an adapter is included. So audio, microphone. Next cable is for our USB 3.0 port. Goes in right there. So this one's labeled F panel. This hooks up to our JFP1 pins. This cable is what connects our power button to the board. So our last case cable is to connect the Type-C port, but unfortunately this motherboard does not have an input for the Type-C. It's kind of funny though, because the motherboard does have 1 Type-C port. So our first fan splitter is gonna hook up down here. The second one we're gonna be plugging in up here. And then wire both of them to the back. Moving to the back side of our case. So I'll plug in 2 of our fans to the splitter. And then the other 2 fans are able to connect to each other, so we won't need a splitter for this one. But it was a 2-pack, so that's why I'm just gonna hook it up this way. Might as well use it. And now our power cables. So our CPU power cable plugs in right here. Our 24 pin plugs in right here. Make sure both of these cables are all the way in. They should clip into the input. So the last cable for our graphics card, we'll save that for later. All right guys, graphics card time. So we paid 240 bucks for our 1660 Super by Asus. It's rocking 6 gigs of VRAM. This card's rocking a DVI port, HDMI port, and a display port. So we're gonna be lining up our graphics card with the first PCI slot on our board. First, we wanna pull this back, and we're gonna be removing the second and third brackets to make space for our card. Now, I'm just gonna line it up and then just push it in till it clips. Resecure it. And our juice. Our system's then gonna boot into our flash drive. We're gonna select next, install now. If you have a product key, you insert it right here. I don't have one, next. I'm gonna be installing Windows 10 Pro next. Just read this like that. Next, we're gonna select custom install, and right here is where all the drives hooked up to our system are gonna show up. We only have a single SSD, that's where we're installing Windows 10. Next, so right now it's copying all the Windows 10 files from our flash drive to our SSD. Once that's done, the computer's not gonna restart. And at this point, it's normal for our system to restart twice, sometimes even 3 times. Everything's good, just let it do its thing. Okay, so yeah, once we arrive here, all files are copied over, so we can disconnect our flash drive, and we're just gonna go through this process. Pretty simple. This is like if you cop the new laptop from Best Buy, it's just your username and password and whatnot.